how to make sure your company can withstand the most uncertain market environments. Hi, my name is Jason Ellinger. I'm the CEO of Taika Translations. We're a multi-million-dollar translation, digital services, and interpretation company. And we've been working in this industry for about 15 years at this point. We incorporated about 10 years ago. And during this time, I've seen companies rise and fall, and largely based on a very few factors. And there are a lot of it. There's always an excuse. There's always like, well, the market sucks, or technology advancements ran me out of business, or there's just not enough opportunity out there. And I want to try to help somebody out there. There's always enough opportunity. There's always a massive amount of competition in the marketplace. It's always difficult to find amazing team members. It's always ridiculously hard to bring on new clients. That is a given in every environment since the beginning of the market, whenever that was, like thousands of years we're talking. So I want to give you a couple principles that help you withstand this crushing. For some, it's a crushing reality. For some, it's an opportunity to flourish. And what is the difference? What makes that transition? One will get crushed and die, and one will flourish. First of all, it's a mentality thing. I remember coming into the translation industry 10 years ago, and some of the translators or some of the people that have been in the industry for a really long time weren't able to handle the transitions of technology. There were new pieces of technology coming out. There were new translation management softwares coming out. There were translation memories and machine translation, post-editing stuff that came out, and people hated this at the very beginning. And some of those who were able to latch on to it, learn it, and be able to use that to their advantage, they became very prosperous and have become very prosperous. And some of them who rejected and said, "No, I will not do that. It's against me. I do not believe that is the right way to run things." Those people eventually they went out of business. And the harsh reality, they'd been in business for 25, 30 years at that point. But they weren't ready to take on a new challenge in the marketplace that would create a lot of animosity around the issue of how work got done in our industry. And it was a challenge coming in at that time because I had to overcome that boundary in my own mind. Like, man, can you actually prosper? What if this wipes out the industry completely? Like, what's going to happen? There were so many questions. And the reality is, at any time in the marketplace, it is tumultuous. It is challenging. And there are many elements of uncertainty that you are going to face. Maybe sometimes you're a little bit better off than others, but most of the time in the marketplace, it's a challenge. And sometimes things look bleak. Sometimes we're on these mountaintops where we figured everything out and we're just going up and up and up and up. And then sometimes we have that down spike and it's like, dang it, none of this is working. Everything we're investing in turns to poop. Why in the world why can't we prosper like we were maybe 6 months prior? But a couple of things has helped me to be able to stabilize our organization in those tumultuous times, and that is this. When things are overly optimistic, we steadily improve, just like in the times that we were having challenges. So when we have great opportunity, we've identified and honed in on our market, we've clarified the client that we're after, and we're just hitting on all cylinders, and we're just landing client after client after client. The tendency is to grow faster than we're able. And we have to be very careful about that, being too ambitious. And as an entrepreneur, I'm super ambitious. I love going after it and just getting everything that we possibly can. At the same time, I've had to learn discipline. The discipline to say, this is enough growth. And although we could go for that, we could go for the stars, this is enough for this period. And if we've hit this benchmark, anything else that's nice, but we need to stay within our capabilities so that we can take the next step of growth, enhancing that next 20%. Okay, so it's a very consistent, methodical understanding that when we're in good times and when we're in bad times, we still have to work out the growth. So we set a percentage of growth. So for example, if next year is going to be a 20% growth for our company, well, if the market conditions are good, we're working towards that benchmark and we'll probably get there a little faster. And if the market conditions are bad, we're still working towards that benchmark. And we might get there right by the skin of our teeth at the end of that cycle. But we're going to get there at all costs. And we're going to do as many reps and iterations inside this year, inside this 12-month period, to hit that 20% as possible. And we're not going to use excuses like the market sucked. We're just going to freaking get after it. And when things aren't moving as fast as we want them to, we're going to keep we're going back to our, why isn't it working? Okay, what do we need to implement? What changes can we make right now? What evidence do we have that supports that we can get to our benchmark? And then on those good years, when it's like, heck, we are almost there. We're 4 months into the year and we freaking hit our 20%. Like, this is amazing. Then it's time to, okay, we've hit our 20%. We're within that 12-month time frame. We've got a lot of time left out of this year. Let's make sure we can support this growth with incredible diligence and incredible product deliverability. And so we don't just go, well, we've made 20%. Let's make 60%. No, let's say, all right, we made 20%. What is going on in our company? What are the hurdles that we have to, or the stumbling blocks that we need to remove out of the way so that we can next year get to that point where we can grow that 20%, so that we can keep that discipline. And that fanatical discipline around the growth aspect of our company, taking responsibility when the market conditions are bad and doing as many reps as we have to be able to implement and improve and improve and improve so that we can get to the 20% when the bad market conditions exist, or when the market conditions are awesome and we're just flourishing quickly, having the discipline to say, all right, we can go faster, but let's check ourselves to make sure we're able to deliver again and again and again, setting ourselves up for that next year where the market conditions may change. And we might have a few years where the market conditions are rough, but we're going to stick to working to our growth, and we're going to stick to our march, our very diligently set forth plan that we said, okay, we are going to hit this target. Not a pie in the sky, stupid, we're going to 10 times our company by the end of the 12 months. That's dumb. Really, really dumb. And when you do that, you almost set yourself up for failure. And that's why I'm trying to communicate the message. In the good times and in the bad times, we have to maintain this fanatical discipline that we don't overshoot, overextend ourselves, and in those bad times that we still hold ourselves responsible to achieve the growth we set out to achieve. So that's number one. Now, step number two is empirical validation. And empirical validation, these two concepts, it is getting evidence for what you're trying to do. We can get hyped up as leaders, as executives in our executive team, like, oh man, this is going to be the next most awesome possible thing ever. And we get it, and we just hype ourselves up around an idea. And if we're charismatic, we can just bring people into this vision and launch them forwards into this thing. And it can be a complete and utter failure. So empirical validation is about the process of failing multiple times before we can get to a big initiative that wins. And that is, we've gone and done the work of trial and error. Great leaders look at trial and error situations, especially failure, as tuition paid to achieve greatness. So whenever you go multiple times through multiple failures and you've tried, you've done analysis, and then you've taken action, you've done analysis and you've taken action. You can't just stick in analysis paralysis. We have to get from analysis to action very quickly in many cases so that we don't just stick in analysis paralysis. And then we try a bunch of small iterations, and then we look at those iterations like, okay, which one of these worked? Which one of these has really positive outcomes? Or did they all suck and we have to go back to the drawing board and start again? So that we don't just launch into some stupid big effort in an effort to save our company or an effort to completely rock our environment to prosper. It's very dangerous and seldom works. What works the best in good times and in bad times is when we look out in the marketplace and we take the evidence of what we currently have and say, okay, this actually worked a little bit. Like, how can we adjust that? How can we amplify that? How can we increase this service in this area or this element of this service in our company so that we can serve more people or more clients with that, or maybe dig deeper into the current clients that we have? How can we, like, what is the truth behind what we are actually seeing, the empirical validating facts? Because when you're scared in bad market conditions, facts are your friends. Facts make all the difference between you succeeding and failing. I've seen there's a case study done on PSA, Pacific Southwest Airlines, I think is the name of the company, and they were an amazing company before Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines, the one in existence that everybody knows and loves today, maybe not everybody knows and loves, but some of you do. They're one of the most successful companies in all of history, in any company that exists today, and especially in airline history. And Southwest Airlines, which originated in Texas, they copied somebody else. They copied PSA, Pacific Southwest Airlines, and they did everything that they did, but they just used a little bit different approach on some things. And this in the specific area of empirical validation, they did what worked. They took everything that these other people did that worked, and they just copied it. In some cases, they said, like, we literally copied the manuals of that company and did exactly what they did. However, there was a period when PSA started to become too ambitious, and they started to get afraid, and they started to shoot big efforts into the marketplace, acquiring this company. They started a hotel firm and they decided, okay, you know what, this is going to be a great idea. We're going to buy hotels and rental car companies, and we own the airlines, so there's just going to be this whole life cycle of hotel, rental, and everything is the money's going to all come flow through us. And what they found out is they were really terrible at hospitality. They really sucked at renting cars and getting the cars back and running that whole business. They were amazing, the best in the world at being an airline carrier. And guess what? Today they don't even exist because they started shooting really big efforts into the marketplace that were not tested. They didn't have empirical data that said, yeah, this actually works. They didn't like buy one rental car company at a single airport and test if it would work. They did a whole big thing at one time. And then they did another big thing that wasn't tested. And then they did another big thing. And then the market conditions, they got bad. And eventually they were crushed, and they had to sell out to a smaller company that had nowhere near the prospective outlook that they did in their early days. And that's because they got out of the fanatical discipline of being empirical validators of the data that they have in front of them. Just saying, okay, here's the analysis. We're going to get past the analysis paralysis, and we're going to get to the empirical testing, and we're going to test, and then we're going to find the things that work, and then we're going to amplify. And we're going to amplify, and then we're going to find out, okay, does that work? If that works, great. We're going to just push it all the way to market, and we're just going to go whole hog with that. Whole hog is a Southern term for saying all full speed ahead, right? We're just and this constant process, and this keeps you from getting your head chopped off in good times, and it keeps you from being afraid and unable to grow in really bad times. And so, as a leader, navigating changing markets, unfavorable markets, scary markets, the discipline to maintain a rigorous growth and not say, okay, the market's bad, so we can't grow. No, screw that. We're going to grow in good times and bads. And the constant empirical validation, checking what works, what doesn't work, and amplifying those things that work again and again and again, and making the small error first. Pay the small tuition first for verifying the actions, the products in the marketplace that work, the initiatives rather in the marketplace that work, and have the constant discipline to creatively manifest empirical evidence that illuminates the right direction. If you do this over time, in good times and in bad times in business, you can prosper. So I hope this helps somebody out there. Please like and subscribe to this video. I'm going to be continuing to put out content like this, and I hope it helps those big or small business people who are trying to prosper in good times and in bads, and keeps you from being afraid and gives you the mentality that it takes to weather the storms.